Hello, and welcome to what is likely going to be in large part the new format of this channel. For those of you who've been watching for a while, most of my content up to this point has been very scripted, very kind of I watch it and I respond to it, and then maybe I get some comments that I can respond to underneath the video, which is always great, but at this point I'm mostly thinking I would like to try and move towards something a little bit more live, a little bit less scripted. Something where, hopefully, if I can get enough people who actually want to watch it, can start live streaming the video making process and kind of explore things with the audience, because that would be much, much more interesting to me than doing it on my own and then getting to interact. So, in addition to that, most of my videos on this channel at this point have been about religion, which, you know, I still care about. Still very bad. It's still something that we need to be fighting against. However, at this point, there's just too much at stake politically in the United States where I live, and I would feel a little bit wrong sitting on the sidelines. In addition to the fact that there is just only so much you can really talk about with religion, and there's never really a time when you get to stop, because the other side certainly won't. But it's not something it's not something I would really want to devote my entire creativity to. So we're mostly going to be moving, hopefully, a little bit more towards politics on this channel. And I figured what better way to do that than to start out with taking the I Side With quiz. So I guess we're going to be doing that today. For everybody who has never taken this, this is something that I was introduced to when I was in my sophomore year of high school. And this is a quiz that basically you answer a bunch of questions and it kind of shows you who you side with politically. The different parties, the different candidates who are running. I remember when I first took this, my sophomore year of high school, I took the quiz and my party affiliations came up, I shit you not, 99% conservative and 98% Republican. Which, it's a little bit different from where we are today. So we're gonna see where that sits. I've taken it a few times since, and it's never been like that before. But we'll see where we end up now. So, first question. Do you support the use of nuclear energy? Now, I may be a little bit biased in this one because I get most of my information on this from a somewhat biased source, being that my girlfriend is currently studying environmental things and works with a lot of nuclear energy type stuff. So she's pretty biased towards this, and from what I can see, it's pretty much probably our best option at this point. Because people love solar, people love wind, but there's the problem with that is, one, it's going to take a whole lot to actually get those to be affordable. They're getting more affordable, but they're not quite there yet, from what I understand. In addition to the fact that a lot of the materials that you need in order to use those to build the solar panels and the wind turbines and that sort of thing are materials that are also pretty non-renewable. You need a lot of them, and they aren't super good to get. So nuclear energy, I think, at this point, we're kind of too late for this to be what we use for to curtail global warming at this point, but at this point, I think we need to be moving towards this, and we need to start destigmatizing it, because the amount of danger involved has gone down significantly from what it used to be, and I think a lot of people haven't sort of moved on with that. So I would say, yeah, I think we should support the use of nuclear energy, at least in the future here, when we can change some public perception about it. Should the government require children to be vaccinated for preventable diseases? Absolutely. I cannot imagine why anybody would think otherwise, but then again, that is the world we live in, where a lot of people just don't believe in it, which, you know, is great. A lot of them tend to overlap with very religious people, people with religious exemptions, which is right here and is something that I think is pretty much bullshit. Because if you are religiously exempting your children, then you are taking away the ability for people who are actually unable to get the diseases. You're taking away their ability to be safe around people who have had the vaccine, which you can't make that decision for other people. And that's the main problem. It's sort of the your right to throw a punch ends at the tip of my nose sort of thing. It doesn't just affect you. And it's your kid. They should have some sort of right to have the vaccines, even if you are too stupid to give them the vaccines. Should producers be required to label genetically engineered foods? Now, personally, I think GMOs are very overblown as far as their public perception. There is a whole lot of issues with people putting way too much stock in the idea that things are genetically modified. Things have been genetically modified. Without genetic modification of food, most of the foods that we know today, even the ones that we would consider natural, would not exist. Obviously, it's a call back to sort of the religious thing with the banana not quite being built for the human hand by nature or God, like our friend Ray Comfort would like to think. If you've ever seen a banana, let's see, what's the original banana? Let's see. Ah, yes, that. Beautiful. That there is what you have without GMOs. So, I think, personally, I'm a little bit bigger of a fan of the banana we have now. And if that means GMOs, I think I'm a little bit happier with that. So, yeah, I'm going to say no, they shouldn't really have to label it. I think if you care, I'm sure you can find it out other ways, but the labeling of it, the required labeling of it, is just a matter of, I guess stoking more public fear in it is, it has to be labeled, so something must be wrong with it, which is just bullshit. Should the government fund space travel? Yeah, I'd say, yeah, it's not super important, but at this point, it's something that we should be funding, at least in some part, because there's no other good feasible way to do it other than having private companies do it, which I don't necessarily, as much as I don't necessarily trust the state, I don't really trust private companies much more. So I'm going to say yes. The amount could be debated upon, but I think, yeah, we should be funding space travel in some extent. Should the Electoral College be abolished? Absolutely. Switch to a ranked choice voting system. At this point, the Electoral College, it made sense, I guess, kind of, when it was first posited, when it first came into being at the beginning of when we were trying to decide how we were going to do our elections. Because in that time, it was much more difficult to have an accurate count, which, at that point, you kind of had to have somebody step in and say, yeah, this is what the majority of people wanted, so we're going to kind of have that, as well as the fact that a lot of the states back then were not so much united as a country as much as they are now. It wasn't quite as respected. People in one state were much more, I guess it's kind of that way now too, where people from certain states feel a whole lot less like the people in other states and different regions of the country actually understand their struggles. But at this point, the Electoral College it basically keeps us in the same cyclical problem that we have, where we get stuck with two shitty candidates and are forced to choose one. Whereas switching to a ranked voting system would allow for a much more open sort of election and would just kind of be better representative of what the people want in general. So a ranked choice voting system is definitely my preference. Should a photo ID be required to vote? I'm going to say no on that one. From what I understand, the data on as far as voter fraud in this country is overblown to the point where there is so little voter fraud that it may as well be non-existent. Meanwhile, if you are requiring people to have a photo ID, then that is basically just putting more barriers up for people who would already be disenfranchised from being able to vote, which is already a massive problem in this country, where we have tons and tons of people who want to vote, but due to some sort of, I guess basically due to normally the Republican Party trying to keep minorities from being able to vote and changing polling locations and making sure that there aren't as many in those areas where the less fortunate people live. I mean, you have more of an issue with that, so giving them as much opportunity as possible to be able to vote, which would be by not requiring a photo ID, is definitely the better choice. Should foreigners currently residing in the United States have the right to vote? That one's interesting. Now, to some extent, there's a part of me that really likes anyone who pays taxes should have the right to vote. There's a part of me that pulls that way, but I feel like that would be... There are at least some people who would be willing to exploit that. I think my main thought on this is that I think citizens should be the ones who are voting, but I think it should be easier to become a citizen. So I think that's sort of a separate issue that I'm sure we'll get into later. But I'm going to go ahead and, for the time being, I'm going to go ahead and click no on that one. All right, what do we got here? Should political candidates be required to release their recent tax forms to the public? Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, if you are running for public office, you kind of lose the right to have your tax returns and your sort of financial information like that, to have it be private. If you are wanting people to elect you to a public office, then they need to have access to the paperwork that would show that you are actually to be trusted in that sort of position. Should there be a limit to the amount of money a candidate can receive from a donor? Absolutely. Because politicians should not be bought by wealthy donors. Yeah, that's mostly the big problem, because if you have anybody can donate any amount of money, then you have the people with very little money having much less potential impact even on a candidacy, rather than the people who have a whole lot of money and can throw $10 million a candidate's way. You kind of run into an issue where the candidate is much more likely to listen to the one who can give him $10 million than the one who can give them $10. So, I mean, personally, publicly funded elections I think would be really good. One of the things that I do still kind of jive with Andrew Yang on is the idea of his democracy bucks. So basically, everyone has a certain amount of money that is given to them on the merit of them being a citizen, that they are only allowed to then give to political candidates. And that basically takes any sort of imbalance out of it as far as people being able to give more than others. And it also, I mean, publicly funds the elections in and of themselves, which is pretty great in my opinion. Should the minimum voting age be lowered? I think yes. Personally, I think, and I've always thought this. Personally, I figured it might kind of change when I got older and I would kind of think otherwise, but at this point, yeah, this one's probably about it. Yes, any citizen that pays taxes should be allowed to vote. And mine personally would go even a little bit beyond that, possibly. It would depend on the way that it would depend on a bunch of research that we would have to be done on the subject, but I think, because it's basically, before you have the right to vote, you don't really live in a democracy in the way I see it. If you have no say in what the government does, you don't really live in a democracy, because you don't have any say in it, which is the whole point of a democracy, which, to some extent makes sense. If you are 5 years old, you probably shouldn't have the right to vote because your parents are just going to end up casting your vote for you. I think, and now there would be some issues with this, as far as children being more likely to vote based on what their parents say, which would kind of be an issue, but I mean, it would certainly have affected me when I was younger because, like I said, 99% conservative. Not great. But if you allow younger people to vote, then you encourage them to get involved in knowing what is going on in their country because they actually have a chance to change it. And you also, while there would be some sort of transitionary period before people actually got more well-informed, where people would just end up voting with their parents, what their parents would vote for, I think over time it would kind of even out and it would make everything a little bit more democratic, personally. I think that the voting age should be lowered. I'm not sure to where, but I think 16 is probably as high as I would say it should be. It should at least be lowered down to 16, I think. Should corporations, unions, and non-profit organizations be allowed to donate to political parties? This one's a little bit weird. Personally, I think no, because I think they should be publicly funded. Corporations, I think, is one issue. Unions, yeah, no, I just think they should be publicly funded. I think the best way to actually make our election process work is to have it be even across the board, have it be something where it is not who has the money to be able to have influence. I think the sooner we get rid of that, the better off we are. So I'm going to say no. Nobody should be able to give money to political parties. That's what I think. Should a politician who has been formally convicted of a crime be allowed to run for office? I think, yeah, once they've served their sentence, I think, yeah. I mean, it's the whole question of whether felons should be allowed to vote. I mean, it's kind of the same. It's just kind of to a higher level. Like, if you want to run for office after you've carried out your sentence after being convicted of a crime, and people are willing to vote for you, then yeah, I think you should be able to run for office. I mean, you would have to be forthcoming with it. Like, if it was not a felony, violent, financial, or sexual crime, I feel like, for the most part, granted, there was, Roy Moore, who people still voted for him, though he didn't win. But I feel like, for the most part, if it's one of these crimes, you're not really going to have the support to actually win a public office. So I feel like this is kind of a moot point anyway. So I'm going to say, yeah, as long as they finish serving their sentence, I think you should be able to run for office. Should foreign lobbyists be allowed to raise money for American elections? No. No, they should not. Should there be a 5-year ban on White House and congressional officials from becoming lobbyists after they leave the government? I don't think there should be lobbyists at all, personally. I think that, let's see, yes, ban all forms of lobbying. Because, again, this is just an extension of the problem of money being way too big of a determiner in who wins elections. It completely invalidates the ability for the average person to actually get their voice heard. So yeah, no, there should be no lobbyists. Do you support increasing taxes for the rich in order to reduce interest rates for student loans? Well, let's see. Yes, all right. Yes, it increased government funding so every student receives a free college education. That should be the baseline. Like, there's no good reason that in the wealthiest country in the entire world, in all of history at this point, the wealthiest country in all of history, there's no reason we should not be able to provide free college for people. It's really not that much money in the grand scheme of things. Like, to an average person, it seems like a ton, but to to the government, no, it's really not that much, especially when you look at how much money we spend on things that we don't need to, which, again, I'm sure we'll get into here. Should the federal government pay for tuition at 4-year colleges and universities? Yes. That is the same thing here. And I will say, one of the big complaints that I hear about this, which blows my mind, is people who complain that, well, if you make college free for people who are going now, well, that's so unfair to the people who have already paid for college. Well, okay, maybe, but is the solution to that to then make everybody else suffer just because you had to? That is the most selfish, thought process that I can even imagine in this sort of scenario. It blows my mind how many people get caught up in this. They're like, well, I just paid off my student loans, so why should you not have to pay them? Well, if it was such a big deal that you had to pay them, then why should everybody have to pay them? Shouldn't we try and work towards something better? Which some people apparently just can't get through their heads. But yeah, obviously the federal government should pay for tuition for four-year colleges and universities. Should the federal government fund universal preschool? Yeah. I mean, there's no good reason not to. Yeah, there's no good reason we shouldn't have universal preschool here as well for the people who want it. Do you support Common Core national standards? Yeah, okay. I think this is probably about the best we're going to do here. Yes, I think in concept, having sort of a standard that we're trying to hold ourselves to, probably a good idea, but it just does not work the way we have it implemented right here. It's just, there are so many things that are not actually included in this, as far as what is looked at when sort of establishing these standards for different socioeconomic groups and different socioeconomic standards within different cities, and it's just a nightmare the way we have it right now. So yeah, I'd like it in concept, but it is not good how it is right now. Should the government decriminalize school truancy? School truancy. You see, I think that if we were to get to a point where the standards that we held schools to and the way that we actually think of school as actually trying to make people better rather than just being sort of a metric that we can say, aha, look at us, we're so smart as a country, which I think is a lot of it at this point, then people would be a whole lot more incentivized to actually want to go to school. So I think, personally, we should decriminalize school truancy. I don't think you should have to go to school if you don't want to, but I think we should encourage people to. It's sort of like drug decriminalization. I think all drugs should be decriminalized, but that doesn't mean I would encourage people to use them. I think it's still better. Do I think you should be on heroin? Not really, but I think you should have the right to be on it. I would encourage you not to, and I would probably want to fund programs that are trying to help people get off of heroin, but I also wouldn't want to criminalize people being on heroin. It's sort of a parallel between those two. Do I support charter schools? Charter schools, I'm trying to remember. I don't think so. Yeah, no, run by private companies? No. I don't like charter schools, because charter schools are funded by companies that basically, it's as I understand it, it's a way to pull more people away from it's a way to pull people away from public schools, so that the public schools don't do as well, and that sort of if you have the means to go to a charter school, then you're kind of screwed as far as, or the school you're leaving behind, the public school that you're leaving behind kind of gets screwed over, especially based on the way that schooling is funded in this country, which is a whole other issue. Do I support the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act? I mean, yeah, its implementation was not super great, and it would be definitely better. Yeah, but a mandatory single-payer system would be even better. That's basically it. It is a stepping stone, and there are some good things about it, but it definitely needs to be improved. There's a whole lot of valid criticisms that people can have of the Affordable Care Act. Granted, a lot of the criticisms people have are not super warranted, but I think the sooner we move past Obamacare and get something better, the better off we're going to be. Should the federal government increase funding of health care for low-income individuals? Yeah, absolutely. Let's see, where is it? Yeah, prefer switching to single-payer healthcare system. Yeah, no, like, your health and your ability to get medical treatment should never be based on your economic level. Like, if you are poor, you should have just the exact same access to medical care and not have to worry about it bankrupting you, just like somebody who makes 10 times what you make. It's ridiculous that that's the country we live in, where if you're poor, like, breaking your leg can bankrupt you. Like, it's fucking horrible. I cannot imagine how anybody could think that our system as it works, as it exists right now, is one that is actually working for the people. Yes, I absolutely support single-payer healthcare. Should people be required to work in order to receive Medicaid? No. No, don't think so. Personally, I think at this point, this is obviously more of a long-term thing, but we're getting to the point now where I think we need to be thinking about life past automation. Because the thing that we're kind of dealing with right now is a lot of jobs are being automated away, and that's stressing a lot of people out. Automation is a good thing. It means that we can do more with less. So in a society where we're doing more with less, we shouldn't need everybody to be working. Like, eventually you get to the point where you shouldn't need to have everybody working, and the amount that we can produce with less people working will eventually exceed what we can with everybody working because of automation. So at some point you have to kind of make a switch in your mind where like, automation has to be a good thing, because if it's not, then you're just gonna it's basically a matter of people wanting things to stay the same because that's what they're used to. Like, they're used to everybody having a job and everybody having to go to work every day and having to work for a living. But in a society where automation gets to the point where it is pushing past what we can do without it, with less people actually working in it, and still make more money, then we should be looking at a system where those like businesses that use the automation are properly taxed, and then that is reallocated to people who need it, because there's no reason for automation to go up but then to still have to work the same amount to live. It's just, there's a disconnect there, and I think the main disconnect is just the way people view our society, and I think that needs to change. Should the government regulate the prices of life-saving drugs? Yes, and we should, let's see, should socialize medicine and healthcare? Yeah, we should socialize medicine and healthcare. Should there be more or less privatization of veterans' healthcare? Let's see. No, let's see. I mean, I just prefer, I mean, there should be less privatization because it should just be a government plan. There should be no private insurance. There should be nobody in this country who makes money off of your ability to go to the doctor should you get sick. That just shouldn't be a thing. Should cities open drug safe havens where people who are addicted to illegal drugs can use them under the supervision of medical professionals? Absolutely. That is a very important step to destigmatizing drug use, and it makes it so, because right now, if you are addicted to drugs, you're kind of on your own, because you can't like go to somebody about it because it's illegal. So if you have a place where they can, if they want help, they can go to then get that help where they're not going to be arrested for it, yeah, that's going to make it so much better. This is necessary to reduce the drug overdose death rate. Yeah, drug abuse should be treated as a health issue, not a criminal issue. That's just how it goes. Should the federal government be allowed to negotiate drug prices for Medicare? Yeah. I mean, eventually it should be everybody has Medicare, so I mean, if they want to negotiate the drug prices, that works for me. Should health insurers be allowed to deny coverage to individuals who have a pre-existing condition? Absolutely not. Should the government increase funding for mental health research and treatment? Yes, they should. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that just makes sense. And do I support the legalization of marijuana? Yes. As I understand it, there have been some recent studies that have kind of concluded that there are more health risks associated with marijuana than what we always kind of wanted to say that there were. I know one of them was that if you smoke weed while you are pregnant, that your child has a higher chance to develop autism. Which, I mean, I think most people knew probably you shouldn't be smoking marijuana while you're pregnant. So I'm not quite sure exactly what that does, and it also can exacerbate and lead to more. I think it was heart problems, lung problems, that sort of thing. Which, granted, you're inhaling something into your system that wasn't there before. So I think that kind of just makes sense. But yeah, I think we should legalize marijuana. I think we should legalize all drugs, or at least decriminalize all drugs, and then immediately release anyone serving time for drug-related offenses, because we have so many people in this country who are like in prison right now for drug offenses, which is ridiculous. Nonviolent drug offenses should not be something that gets you thrown in jail. Should the government increase environmental regulations to prevent climate change? Absolutely. Should the U.S. withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement? No, we should be back in that. Should disposable products such as plastic cups, plates, and cutlery that contain less than 50% of biodegradable material be banned? Banned. I think... I think that's probably that might be the best way to go. Because at this point, I mean, the way that recycling goes, or the way that, honestly, the way that recycling goes in this country is that we can recycle as much as we might want to, but the amount of like shit that comes from us, just regular people, is so much less, like such a small percentage of what comes from like the major corporations, that we don't really have an effect unless it is them doing it. So I think like this one, it's a good, like, you should recycle. You should, because why wouldn't you? But we should, it should be more focus needs to be put on the corporations, because the amount of waste that they put out is exuberant. I guess maybe increase tax incentives for companies that make biodegradable products. That might be the best way to start out. Should the U.S. expand offshore oil drilling? No. Do you support the use of hydraulic fracking? No. Should the government stop construction of the Dakota Access Pipeline? Yeah, probably. There's a part of me that leans toward the government shouldn't be allowed to acquire land by eminent domain at all, but I think there are some legitimate like times when that might be something we need. I think the whole claiming land from eminent domain for the border wall is some bullshit, but what are you gonna do when you got bullshit in the White House? Should the government stop construction? I guess yeah, we should. There's just no good reason to continue with that at this point. Should researchers be allowed to use animals in testing of safety drugs, vaccine, medical devices, and cosmetics? I would lean towards yes, but not for cosmetics. Cosmetics is, like, everything else here is like stuff that will save lives. Cosmetics, no. If you want to test your cosmetics, you're going to find somebody who's willing to test your cosmetics. You're not going to use animals for that. Should the government give tax credits and subsidies to the wind power industry? Yeah, probably. We should probably... should support more sustainable energy technologies. I mean, we do need to move towards that, because we're so fucked as far as climate change goes at this point. But we need to do something. And if this is going to be it, then yeah, let's do that. Should cities be allowed to offer private companies economic incentives to relocate? Let's see. Right. So this is like people offering like tax write-offs for companies that like when Amazon wants to build a new factory and they're like, ooh, who wants it? And the people are like, oh, I'll give you $5 million in tax write-offs if you want to come build it here. Yeah, no, I don't think so. Should the government continue to fund Planned Parenthood? Absolutely. Now, this answer does exist. Yes, their services reach far beyond abortions and can save many lives through cancer screening, prenatal services, and adoption referrals, which is very true. But I like just yes better, because this one kind of almost implies that it's good in spite of doing abortions, which it's good in part because it does carry out abortions. It needs to be funded, yes. But even people who are pro-life, or as I prefer, anti-choice, even for those people, Planned Parenthood is probably your best bet to lower the amount of abortions, because they do a whole lot as far as like sex ed, and they do a whole lot beyond abortions, like it says here, that basically keeps people from getting pregnant when they don't want to be. So your best bet is to fund them even if you are against abortions, because that will lead to less abortions, even if they carry some out. What is my stance on abortion? Pro-choice. Should gender identity be added to anti-discrimination laws? Absolutely. There's no reason it shouldn't be. Should health insurance providers be required to offer free birth control? Yes. Should a business be able to deny service to a customer if the request conflicts with the owner's religious beliefs? Should a private company be allowed to deny service to a customer if the request conflicts with the owner's religious beliefs? Now, you know me, I am no fan of religion. I think religion, to put it aptly, poisons everything. But I think... if the request conflicts with the owner's religious beliefs. Now, if this is a matter of like, if this is like who you are, like if you are gay or trans and you're trying to go into a business and use their services and they say, no, we're not gonna let you do business here because you conflict with our religious beliefs, then absolutely they should not be able to deny service to people, because that is something that you can't change, being discriminated against based on something that you can change. Now, if it's just something that you want and it's not like, I don't know, it's kind of complex. I mean, yeah, all customers deserve to be treated equally. I think the way that this question is worded is really weird. Like, yeah, obviously all customers should be treated equally. Like, it does not matter who you are, you should be treated the same way. If it's a matter of like you walk into I mean, then again, I don't really think there should be like Christian hospitals, religious hospitals. But if you were to go into like a religious hospital and be like, hey, yeah, I want an abortion, and they were like, no, God, I don't know, it's just bad. Like, I don't think, yeah, no, they should not be able to deny services. Do you support the legalization of same-sex marriage? Obviously, absolutely. Should transgender athletes be allowed to compete in athletic events? You see, I think this one is a whole lot more of a complex question than people want to give it credit for. Now, I haven't done a whole lot of research on this because it's not something that affects me, which is kind of a selfish reason to not be educated about it as much as I would like to be, but it just doesn't really affect me. I think it's a matter of more research needs to be done on this, because I think, as far as I'm aware right now, the research is a little bit inconclusive. I think, in general, I think right now our best bet is probably yes, but I think we need to keep an eye on that. I think most of the reasons that people are against this are for transphobic reasons, for reasons that just don't make any good sense. But I think we need to keep an eye on it and actually have an open mind with this one and be willing to accept the fact that this might just be something that we can't do. Which, I don't know, maybe, hopefully this is something that works out just fine, but it's not something we necessarily have the research on right now, I don't think. Should the federal government institute a mandatory buyback of assault weapons? Now, if you have followed my channel for a long time, there was a video I did a long time ago, which I've since unlisted just because I don't necessarily agree with it anymore, where I was talking about gun control and that sort of thing. And I just, my stance on guns has changed a lot over the past couple years here, because if I could have my way, if I could wake up tomorrow and all guns just didn't exist and would not exist, then yeah, that would be what I would prefer. But I think the fact that we have weapons like guns in this country and in the world, and we're going to continue to, there's no way we're not. I think a mandatory buyback of assault weapons is not going to lead to any actual good change. I think more than likely it's going to lead to a whole bunch of people with a whole bunch of guns getting really upset, being willing to defend their guns to the death, which I don't think is what we want. In addition to the fact that right now, most of the guns are owned by the right. So if this were to happen, one, the right is obviously already poised to be more likely to defend themselves from this sort of thing because they have all the guns, but also it kind of incentivizes them to be afraid of ever looking left, because the left wants to take their guns, and their guns mean everything to them. So I think this is just bad for Praxis. I think the idea of a mandatory buyback is just not something we need to be looking at right now. I would say no, I don't think we should do a mandatory buyback. I think if we wanted to do a voluntary one, I think that would be fine. I think if we wanted to do a voluntary assault weapon buyback, but then again, assault weapon is a very poorly defined term. Like, that's one thing that a lot of people just don't realize, is how poorly defined that is. But I guess basically it should be a voluntary buyback, if anything. Because if you do try to do a mandatory buyback, it's going to cause a whole lot more problems. Should universities provide trigger warnings and safe spaces for students? Absolutely. There's no reason not to. Should gay couples have the same adoption rights as straight couples? Yes. From what I understand, there's no research to suggest in any way that a child raised by a same-sex couple is any worse off than a child raised by a straight couple. So, yeah, absolutely. There should be the same exact rights there. Should states be allowed to display the Confederate flag on government property? No, that's not your flag. If it's government property, that means it is United States government property, which means that is not your flag. That is a rebel flag of a country that fought you. No. This is just conservative bullshit. This is not something that should be happening. Do I support the death penalty? No, I do not. Should businesses be required to have women on their board of directors? Okay. I think... You see, here's the problem. Is that, like, I think there should be, obviously, women on boards of directors of businesses. The problem is that, like, I think requiring them is an issue in and of itself, because a lot of times that might lead to situations where women are not the most qualified to do the job, but they need to be there anyway, which, you know, there are some valid reasons for why that might be a good thing, regardless, to have them there. But the problem is you can't rely on corporations to do this reliably without some sort of requirement. So I think we kind of have to say yes, because you can't count on the businesses to do it themselves. There has to be some sort of requirement. Should the government support a separation of church and state by removing references to God on money, federal buildings, and national monuments? Yes, they should. I've done several videos on that. Should women be allowed to wear a niqab or face veil to civil ceremonies? Um, yeah. I mean, civic ceremonies. What is it defining as a civic ceremony? I'm gonna say if it's a civic ceremony, I'm not entirely sure what they're referring to as that. I would I would be I would probably say yes, but their identity should be privately verified. At least, I mean, in some capacities, because I mean, it kind of depends on what the ceremony is. If it's something where there's a strong, well, I was gonna say if there's something that's like a strong possibility of somebody trying to get into it to cause some sort of problem, but then again, that would just lead to a whole bunch of issues with like a bunch of people who are prejudiced against people who wear face coverings, then trying to enforce that on face. So yeah, I guess I'd just say yes, because I think this could lead to a whole lot more issues than it would actually solve. Let's see. Should terminally ill patients be allowed to end their lives via assisted suicide? Yes, they should. You see, this worries me, because in theory, this should make sense. Like, you should have a psychological examination to show that you understand this choice before you make it. But at the same time, that opens up the door to somebody else having the ability to say, no, I don't think you're cognitively able to make this choice, and then taking that choice away from you. So I'm just going to say yes. I think in theory this is good. I think in practice it could get tricky. Should marital rape be classified and punished as severely as non-marital rape? No shit. There is no distinction. It is just rape. You did not sign a consent form to be had sex with whenever they want just by marrying them. Absolutely not. No, that is rape. Should the military allow women to serve in combat roles? Sure. If you want to go to war, I can't imagine why anybody would want to. I would never want to, but if you want to, you should be allowed to do so. Should the government increase spending on public transportation? Yeah, probably. It's sort of a very prohibitive thing for a lot of lower income people to not have access to public transportation. I think increasing spending on that is probably a good thing. Should the U.S. build a border wall along the southern border? No. And I think there's one in here. No, it would be costly and ineffective. Yeah, no, there's just no good reason for a border wall. There's no justifiable reason for this. The majority of people who are here illegally and stay here don't come over the southern border. They fly in and outstay when they're supposed to. If you were to make a big border wall, then all you would do is add to the number of people doing. There would be no point. It would be so costly and it would do nothing. There's no good reason to have a border wall. Should illegal immigrants have access to government-subsidized healthcare? Yes, they should. And grant them citizenship, I believe, yes. Let's see. Should illegal immigrants be offered in-state tuition rates at public colleges within their residing state? Let's see. I mean, yeah, I think as long as they pay taxes, yeah, I think they should. Let's see. Should local law enforcement be allowed to detain illegal immigrants for minor crimes and transfer them to federal immigration authorities? Absolutely not. Yeah, no. If you are here illegally and you do something minor, and then get transferred to federal immigration authorities, fuck that. That is some bullshit. Should children of illegal immigrants be granted legal citizenship? Yes. I mean, at some point, abolish all national borders. Absolutely. But society would collapse right now if we were to do that. Let's see. Yeah, no, I think, we should be granting them citizenship. Should sanctuary cities receive federal funding? I mean, I think so. I think sanctuary cities are very important. I mean, it's a matter of basically like it's a place where you can go when you get here, where you know that the law enforcement there is not going to like prosecute you just for being in the country illegally, which again I don't think should be illegal to begin with, but there's that. Should Muslim immigrants be banned from entering the country until the government improves its ability to screen out potential terrorists? No, that is exceptionally xenophobic. Should working illegal immigrants be given temporary amnesty? I mean, yeah, but it should just be, yeah, create a simple path to citizenship for immigrants with no criminal record. Yeah, I mean, the no criminal record, depending on what the crimes are, but yeah, like, yeah. Should the U.S. increase restrictions on its current border security policy? Increase restrictions on its current, I don't think so. Yeah, no, definitely not. Yeah. Nope. Yeah, we should make it easier for immigrants to access temporary work visas. Absolutely. Let's see. Should immigrants be required to learn English? I mean, not if they don't want to. I mean, you're better off if you do, but we should embrace the diversity that immigrants add to our country. I think so. I think other languages are fucking dope, and I'm disappointed in my education that I was not really made to learn another language. Like, I took a few years of French because I was required to, but you don't learn an actual language in the public schooling system. You just don't. And I think we absolutely should. Because if you go to a lot of places in Europe, like, they can speak several languages fluently. Like, I've been to a few different countries in Europe, and I've been to the schools there performing, and like, they can just have fluent conversations with you in English, and then they'll turn around and they'll go back to speaking exactly whatever language they were speaking before. Like, it's amazing, and I wish we would do that because there's no good reason that we shouldn't be doing that. It's just, I think a lot of it is just like the bullshit American xenophobic like, English is best because it's our way sort of thing. Yeah, it's just, there's no good reason we shouldn't be learning other languages. Should the U.S. increase or decrease the amount of temporary work visas given to high-skilled immigrant workers? Increase. Why not? Yeah, okay. Should immigrants to the United States be allowed to hold dual citizenship status? I don't think... I can't really think of any reason... You see, I can't really think of many reasons that one would want to hold dual citizenship, but I also can't think of many reasons that one shouldn't be allowed to. I think that the cases where this is really a relevant question are pretty few and far between as far as like the actual practical effects of it. I would say, yeah. I mean, I can't really see a whole lot of issues with people holding dual citizenship. Like, the idea that somebody would, like, immigrate here and then... Yeah, I mean, I can't see any good reason why they shouldn't be allowed to. I feel like the amount of people who would want to would not be very large. Should immigrants be required to pass a citizenship test to demonstrate a basic understanding of our country's language, history, and government? No, because most citizens could not even pass a citizenship test. Have you guys taken those? Like, I passed mine when I took them in high school. Like, I could get through it, but a lot of people couldn't. A lot of people in my high school were like, no. Yeah, no. Like, it's ridiculous to hold immigrants to that standard when a lot of the people born here could not do half of it. Should immigrants be deported if they commit a serious crime? No, they should be... No. They should be tried here in the country where they live. If they're an immigrant and they live in this country and they commit a serious crime, they should be tried in this country where they live. Should there be a temporary ban on all immigration into the United States? No, there should not. Should the president be able to authorize military force against Al-Qaeda without congressional approval? No. No, you should not. Yeah, Congress should approve all military conflicts, because the last thing that we need is somebody like the president that we have right now deciding he's going to assassinate an Iranian official and throw everyone into chaos, thinking that we might be going to war. So yeah, no, I think democracy kind of important when discussing whether we're going to be going to war with people. Should the U.S. assassinate suspected terrorists in foreign countries? No. No, I don't think so. No, I think that should be something that's handled like internationally. It's not necessarily like we should not be going into other countries and being like, ah, yes, you are a suspected terrorist. We are going to take you into custody now or kill you. Like I don't think that's our place to be doing that. Criminal issues. Should convicted criminals have the right to vote? Absolutely. Like that's like you commit a crime, you commit a felony of any kind, and suddenly you don't live in a democracy anymore. Like there's something very wrong about that. It ties into a bigger issue, which I imagine we'll probably get into at some point in here, where like our justice system is so much more punitive at this point than it is like reformative. We need to get away from the idea that like criminals need to be punished and more like criminals need to be reformed, because the amount of people that we have in prison is ridiculous. This also ties back into the death penalty. Like the idea that you can, like, obviously it makes sense, like in like a basal sense, like in your mind, like this person killed somebody, yeah, they probably shouldn't be around other people, we should probably kill them as well. Like it makes some sense, like if you don't really think about it too much. But would it not be better to reform people than to just punish them? Like it makes no sense. So yeah, convicted criminals should absolutely have the right to vote. Like because what incentive does that give people to actually become better people? If you can commit a crime and you have your rights taken away because of that crime, and there's no way to get those rights back even, then what, what incentive do you have to actually become a member of this society if you will forever be looked at as something less? Like it just does not make for a productive society. Do you support mandatory minimum prison sentencing for people charged with drug possession? Absolutely not. Should non-violent prisoners be released from jail in order to reduce overcrowding? Yeah, especially right now during coronavirus. Hopefully I'm far enough into this video that it's not going to ding me. Then again, I don't get monetized anyway. Granted, that's not because of my content, but more because I am not at the threshold yet. But maybe someday. But we should increase funding to offer education and skill building. We should absolutely be releasing non-violent prisoners from jail. Should prisons abandon the use of solitary confinement for juveniles? Yes, and for all people, because it is severely psychologically damaging. Should police officers be required to wear body cameras? Yes. It does not matter what side of the issue you fall on as far as like the police in this country. If you are against the police and you don't like the police, you should want them to be wearing a body camera. If you do like the police and you have a whole lot of faith in the police that they're going to be doing things right and that you should be supporting them, then yeah, you want them to be wearing a body camera. Because in either case, if something goes wrong, you want to know whose fault it was and to make sure that the people who do things wrong are held accountable for that. This just makes everybody safer. There is no good reason for cops to not be wearing body cameras. Should the government hire private companies to run prisons? No, we should not have private prisons because that makes prisons for profit. That means people are actively making money on people being imprisoned. This is some of that, like, I'm sure there are other places that do this, but this feels like one of those, like, purely only in America things. Like, this is so ridiculous to me. Should drug traffickers receive the death penalty? No, I don't believe in the death penalty. Should the government increase or decrease military spending? Decrease. Holy shit, decrease. We spend so much money on the military. I think we spend more than, I think it's like the next 5 countries combined on military. It's ridiculous. And we have so many better things we could be spending our money on. Should the U.S. accept refugees from Syria? Yeah, I think that's kind of just like a general thing that all countries who are able to should be doing. Yeah, we should be accepting refugees from Syria. Should foreign terrorism suspects be given constitutional rights? Foreign terrorism suspects. You see, what is this referring to exactly? Yeah, no, this is talking about, like, should people that the United States abducts overseas as suspected terrorists have constitutional rights when they're, like, being interrogated and tortured in, like, Gitmo? Like, yeah, no, this is... Yeah, give them a fair trial and shut down Guantanamo Bay at the very least. Right. Should the military be allowed to use enhanced interrogation techniques such as waterboarding to gain information from suspected terrorists? No. Torture is an ineffective form of interrogation? True. Inhumane, unethical, and violates the 8th Amendment? True. And we should strictly follow the laws of the Geneva Convention? Yeah, probably pretty true. So yeah, no. Should the U.S. remain in the United Nations? Yeah, probably. I mean, in the United States, at least personally, I hear very little about the United Nations. I think pulling out of it would be a big mistake. I don't think there's any good reason for us to be pulling out of the UN. Should every 18-year-old citizen be required to provide at least 1 year of military service? Fuck no. Yes, you've come of age. Now you get to go fight in our wars, whichever ones we tell you to, right now. Everybody. Yeah, no, fuck that. I do not have anywhere close to the amount of trust in our government that I would need for this to be anything worthwhile. Do you support the killing of Iranian Major General Qasem Soleimani? No. The strike was illegal since it was not approved by the U.S. Congress. Yeah, and it could unnecessarily start it. Yeah, no, just no. Yeah, that was a bad idea. That was basically just Trump wanting his own Bin Laden moment. Like, oh, we got him, boys. Look at us. Look, everybody be all excited. Yeah, no, that was purely for ego. Should the U.S. increase or decrease foreign aid spending? I think it's probably for the best that we do continue to provide foreign aid. I think the countries that we provide foreign aid to are disproportionately not where they should be. I know we do a whole lot of foreign aid spending for Israel, as I understand it, which is not something we should be supporting. I think increase, but only for countries that have no human rights violations, I think is probably the best way. Should the U.S. continue to support Israel? Yeah, I'm going to go with we should give equal support to Israel and Palestine, mostly because I think that's as far as we could ever reasonably get in this country. Like, the way that Palestine has just been, like, completely wiped from, like, the public consciousness as, like, a thing that exists and matters, all because we care so much more about Israel. This, even especially based on the fact that Israel is super, super bad when it comes to, like, the way that they deal with, like, things in that region. Israel is not something good. Israel is really bad. Yeah, no, Palestine definitely needs support. Should the U.S. remain in NATO? I mean, NATO is not good. And I know we changed something. Oh, right. No, what am I thinking of? Maybe it is NATO. Let's see. Provide military and economic security for each other. Makes all of its decisions by consensus. Okay, yeah, we should probably stay in NATO. Yeah, it's another one of those things where I personally can't see any good reason to not be in NATO. what is the? There was something else that I was thinking of that I don't think we should be, and I can't remember what the acronym is for it, but we might find it later. You support President Obama's move to lift the trade and travel embargo in Cuba? Yes, because that has actually seen like measurable changes in what in like the positive change in Cuba. Like it's actually done some good things there. Like cutting them off from everybody in the United States is just not a good strategy. Should the United States pull all military troops out of Afghanistan? Yeah, probably. We probably shouldn't be there. Like, obviously, we have to be smart about it, but yeah, we should not have a bunch of troops in Afghanistan. Should Jerusalem be recognized as the capital of Israel? No. Yeah, no, it should not be. This is basically just another move by Israel to try and delegitimize Palestine, which is ridiculous. Should the U.S. defend other NATO countries that maintain low military defense budgets relative to their GDP? I mean, yeah. like, I think this is sort of like the general thought of the people who say no to this. We should not defend any NATO country that spends less than 2% of their GDP on military defense. Like, it's basically like a thought process of, well, we spend so much on our military, why should we defend people who don't spend so much on their military? It's just a whole lot of like, it's just a whole bunch of macho shit. Like, oh, look at us, our military's so big, you don't even try. Why should we be protecting you if you wouldn't protect yourself? You know, yeah, we should defend other countries, even if they don't have high military budgets. Should the military fly drones over foreign countries to gain intelligence and kill suspected terrorists? I mean, no. Like, we shouldn't be killing suspected terrorists in foreign countries. Gaining intelligence, this is a very dangerous thought process, needing to use all means necessary to combat terrorism. That's how we lose a lot of our civil liberties. No, the military has no right to do so without a congressional declaration of war. That, I don't know whether that's true or not. That might be very well true. I guess maybe only with permission from the country in question. Maybe. Yeah, that's probably, like, I can't see how that could go wrong. Yeah, I think that's probably the best bet. Should the U.S. formally declare war on ISIS? No, ISIS is not a country. ISIS is not a state. We cannot be declaring war on an organization. Should the U.S. continue NSA surveillance of its allies? No. No, we should not. The NSA, yeah, no, we should not be doing that. Abolish the NSA. Should the Chinese government be able to extradite fugitives from Hong Kong? Absolutely not. That is a very dangerous precedent to set. Should the government cancel production of the F-35 fighter? This is, if I remember right, this is like they're trying to build a new line of fighters that we really don't need and that cost a whole fuck ton of money. Yeah, no, this is, yeah, we should cancel the production of that. There's no good reason to be investing that much money in a new fighter. We already have the largest military on the face of the earth. Should the U.S. prevent Russia from conducting airstrikes in Syria? Yeah, probably. I mean, yeah, Russia is not our friend. All airstrikes should be conducted through UN coordination. That's probably the best bet. I mean, like, because we can't, like, intervene to any meaningful degree against Russia without, like, risking huge issues with Russia. Like, the whole situation with the United States and Russia is super, like, tenuous. Should the U.S. provide military assistance to defend Ukraine from Russia? Again, yeah, probably. Oh God. Yeah, no, foreign policy is not my forte, but a lot of this just, Um, yeah, God, yeah, probably yes. We'll go with yes. Should the U.S. sell military weapons to India in order to counter Chinese and Russian influence? God, I don't like sending military everywhere. Will help boost the economy. That doesn't. I don't care about that. Um, this could be the case. No, we should not sell military weapons to any foreign country. We should increase diplomatic efforts to resolve conflicts peacefully. That would be nice. Wouldn't that be nice? God, that would be so nice. Should the US go to war with Iran? No. Should the government attempt to influence foreign elections? No, nobody should be influencing foreign elections, but everyone does. You see, here's the problem, is that no, we shouldn't be, and no, nobody else should be. But it's kind of a matter of, like, if everybody else is playing dirty and you're not, then you get, like, your teeth kicked in. Yeah, I think as a matter of principle, no, we should not. We shouldn't be doing it. But nobody should be doing it is the problem. Should it be illegal to join a boycott of Israel? Absolutely not. Should the U.S. provide military aid to Saudi Arabia during its conflict with Yemen? What is this one? Let's see. The being supported by Iran and the U.S. interventions is necessary to maintain the balance of power in the region. Should not be involved in a conflict that's killed. Yeah, I think probably no. Yeah, I don't think we should really be sending military aid to Saudi Arabia. Yeah. Should the U.S. conduct military strikes against North Korea in order to destroy their long range? No, we should not launch a preemptive strike on North Korea. Should the U.S. sound, especially because, yeah, no, if we were to conduct like military strikes on North Korea, by the time we could even do that, they would have also launched on South Korea, most likely. Like, that is their sort of ace in the hole, is that they are right next to South Korea. And if we ever, like, legitimately sent, like, missiles at North Korea, they would know about it before they got there, and they could immediately just, like, unload on South Korea, on Japan, on sort of the whole surrounding area that are our allies. That is not something we want to do. Not to mention the fact that they, at this point, most likely do not have any sort of long-range nuclear capabilities. Or if they do, they're probably not stupid enough to actually do anything with them. Should the U.S. send ground troops into Syria to fight ISIS? Probably not. No, I don't believe so. Should the U.S. raise taxes on the rich? Fuck yeah, we should. Should the government raise the federal minimum wage? Fuck yeah, we should. Should the U.S. raise or lower the tax rate for corporations? Let's see. Keep current tax rates but eliminate deductions and loopholes is like the bare minimum. Yeah, that's like the bare minimum. I mean, there's been a whole lot of tax breaks recently. Yeah, no, we should raise it. Yeah, we should be raising it. There's been so many tax rates recently, or tax breaks recently for corporations that, yeah, it's gone down too much. We need to raise it, and we need to get rid of the fucking loopholes. Should the government raise the federal minimum wage? Yeah. Make it a living wage. Absolutely. Let's see. Do you support a universal basic income program? Yes. Yes. I do. But I think the one that is currently most well known is Andrew Yang's, which I was a big fan of for a while. But the problem with Andrew Yang's is that he wants to basically take away all of the social safety nets that we have in place right now to then replace them with UBI, which would not be good, because then all the people have to do is raise their prices on things, and that would completely invalidate like all of the things that they were already getting. because you're going to pay more, but you also don't have the other social safety nets. You don't have food stamps. You don't have that sort of thing, because he wanted to get rid of a lot of stuff to replace it with UBI, and that it basically would just screw over like lower class people. The middle class would probably benefit from it for the most part, but like the lower class would be totally fucked in that case. Should welfare recipients be tested for drugs? No. No, they should not. Should employers be required to pay men and women the same salary for the same job? Yeah. Yeah, I think that's pretty, like, obvious. Should welfare recipients be tested for drugs? This one, like, I mean, obviously, I think they should be decriminalizing all drugs. So if all drugs are decriminalized, then they should, it shouldn't matter whether you're on them or not to be getting welfare. All right. What else we got? Should there be fewer or more restrictions on current welfare benefits? Probably fewer. Let's see. Yeah, probably fewer restrictions on current welfare benefits. Especially right now during COVID. There's just so many issues we have right now. Do you believe labor unions help or hurt the economy? Labor unions, when they're good, they definitely help. Yeah, I think, yeah, they definitely help. Should the government make cuts to public spending in order to reduce the national debt? No. No, we absolutely should not be cutting public spending, because we have the massive military budget that we have, and we don't need. So we should be cutting that instead. And back to this one, the labor unions, like, obviously labor unions are good. I think they're a good stepping stone at this point, because I think what we should be moving more towards is workplace democratization. I think that would be the natural and probably and definitely better next step after unions. But I think right now we definitely need to be supporting unions, because they, while they don't do as much, they definitely do help to improve the conditions of the people working, which is very important. Should there be more economic questions? Should the government increase the tax rate on profits earned from the sale of stocks, bonds, and real estate? Profits earned from yeah, they probably should. They should increase the tax rate on, like, that sort of yeah, that sort of profits. I believe they should. Should businesses be required to provide paid leave for full-time employees during the birth of a child or sick family member? Yes, they should. Also, but the federal government should okay, yeah, no, that's pretty much it. I think the fact that this country does not have, like, any sort of federal vacation time is crazy. Like, most other developed countries, at least, have that sort of thing built in to various degrees, but we have no guarantee of, like, paid vacation guaranteed to our people, despite, again, being the wealthiest country in the history of the world. Yeah, there's no reason we can't also provide that sort of thing and have that be, like, a given, have that be something that is required to be given to people. Should the current estate tax rate be decreased? No. You know, the amount of people who are actually, like, affected by an estate tax is minuscule. Like, what is the specific amount? Let's see. Only applies to estates with a value greater than 5.45 million. Yeah, no, fuck that. If you have an estate worth more than 5.45 million, yeah, you should be paying taxes on it. I don't feel bad about that at all. Should the government use economic stimulus to aid the country during times of recession? Yeah, probably. Let's see. This is probably the best bet. Sort of increased spending on infrastructure. I mean, yeah, just in general, yeah, we probably should be doing that. Should the U.S. continue to participate in the NAFTA. That was the one I was thinking of earlier, not NATO. Yeah, NAFTA is no more. As I remember, this is something that has been replaced already. But NAFTA on its own was not good, and I think the one that we have now, I can't remember if it's slightly better or slightly worse, but it's still bad. We should not be doing that. We need to make that work better. There's a whole lot of issues with this not having provisions for climate change and not having provisions for like workers' rights and that sort of thing. And yeah, we definitely need to have all of those provisions in there. Should the government require businesses to pay salaried employees making up to $46K a year, time and a half for overtime hours? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and should do more to protect workers' rights, obviously. Yeah, I think, everyone should be, you should not be expected to work more than 40 hours a week without being compensated for it. Should pension plans for federal, state, and local government workers be transitioned into privately managed accounts? No, we don't want that to be privatized. Should U.S. citizens be allowed to save or invest their money in offshore bank accounts? This is another one where, like, I feel like the amount of people who would be doing this for any legitimate reason is so small that the people doing it, I mean, I guess, like, as long as offshore income is reported, like, as long as you are reporting that to the United States government, then I think that's probably fine. But, like, it's a matter of the people who are doing it are almost all, at least as far as I can think of, I can't think of any reason why somebody would do this for a non-malicious reason. Which maybe is just my ignorance, but I cannot imagine why. I can't imagine that doing this would be beneficial to average people in any meaningful way. Should the U.S. increase tariffs on imported products from China? No, we should not, because tariffs don't actually help us at all. They end up actually just hurting people here. Should the government break up Amazon, Facebook, and Google? I could definitely see good reason for it. I'd say yes, but I mean the specifics of that would have to be. I mean, the government should break them up, but then again, I don't necessarily think I trust the government as it is now to do it well. Like, sort of like with net neutrality and with, net neutrality, and there was another internet decision that was made. I feel like a lot of the way that these sort of companies work is so far beyond, like, the comprehension of a lot of the, like, older people in, like, the government, that they don't really understand how that could be done well, as far as, like, how the technology has to work with that sort of thing. So I would say, yeah, ideally they should probably be broken up, but I don't necessarily trust our current government to do it. Should the president offer tax breaks to individual companies to keep jobs in the U.S.? Probably not. No. Yeah, I would say probably not. I mean, at this point, we should be basically just incentivizing. Well, I mean, that is an incentivization. God, I feel like this one's kind of a slippery slope, but encourage more private companies to make threats about job losses in exchange for tax breaks. Yeah, that's one issue that could happen. Would be people or corporations, like, threatening to leave to get tax break. It's just so easily, like, exploitable. Yeah, I think there's better ways to do that. Do you support the Trans-Pacific Partnership? I don't really know anything about the Trans-Pacific Partnership, actually. Gotcha. Okay. Easier for American companies to sell their goods and services in the Pacific Rim countries. I don't know enough about that one to even foster a guess there, so I'm going to leave that one blank. Should the government subsidize farmers? Probably. Yeah, probably. Yeah, farming is... There's a lot of issues right now with farming. Yeah. Okay. Would you favor an increased sales tax in order to reduce property tax? No. Because sales taxes tend to impact people who buy more, which tends to be people with less actual economic power, whereas property taxes tend to be paid more by people who own property, which is people who have more money. So this would be a tax largely on the lower income people to then reduce taxes for higher income people. So yeah, no. So no. Should pension payments be increased for retired government workers? What are they at right now? I actually don't know. Yeah. Let's see. When the government employee retires, their periodic payments. As the birth rate continues to fall and their life expectancy rises, governments worldwide are predicting funding shortfalls for pensioners. Well, our life expectancy is actually not rising. Our life expectancy is falling because our country is a shithole. But, this is interesting. Probably adjust them yearly for cost of living is probably the best bet. Yeah. Let's see. Should the government add or increase tariffs on products imported into the country? No. Probably not. Should an in-state sales tax apply to online purchases of in-state buyers from out-of-state sellers? I feel like probably not. Yeah, I don't think so. I think that would probably end up just adding additional taxes onto the people who do a lot of online purchasing, which is, as of right now, mostly probably done through Amazon and probably done a good bit by people who are not super well off financially. Should the government acquire equity stakes in companies to bail out during a recession? Yeah, I think so. I think if they're going to bail out a corporation, I think that the government should then have some sort of equity stake in it so that they can't just turn around and do whatever they want with the money. I think, yeah, that's probably for the best. Alright, should the government prevent mega mergers of corporations that could potentially control a large percentage of market share within its industry? Yeah, probably, but then again, I also don't necessarily trust them in a whole lot of that, but we'll say yes. Yeah, that's probably for the best. Should the IRS create a free electronic tax filing system? Absolutely. It should be much simpler than it is right now. Should the Federal Reserve Bank be audited by Congress? The Federal Reserve Bank, what are you? Right. So this is, so this has to do with the 2008 financial crisis. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think they probably should be audited by Congress because it's a matter of like the role that they played in the 2008 financial crisis. Like, we need to know sort of what role they played and to what extent they played into it, and we need to kind of have an idea of what we can do better like that in the future. Should the government classify Bitcoin as a legal currency? Probably not. I mean, no, and it has no intrinsic value. I mean, neither does our money. I would say probably not. I think, like, it's a private currency. I feel like that's probably not the best thing for us to be classifying as legal currency right now. Maybe in the future. Should there be more restrictions on the current purchasing of firearm? I'm gonna go with this one. They should. I am not nearly as against guns as I used to be. I think right now, I think at this point where we live in a country where the political divide just keeps getting worse and worse, and there is a very decent chance that eventually things are going to boil over and we're going to have some sort of violent outbreak between the left and the right. In a time when the right has all the guns, we need to be not making it so that left leaning people are not able to get firearms, because if you end up in a violent revolution where only one side has guns, you're fucked. So I think guns are probably a good thing for people on the left to be getting, which might come as a bit of a surprise for some of the more liberal people, but I think you need to start thinking about it. But I think requiring strict background checks, psychological training, testing and training, I think is probably a good thing, because that deters people from getting them if they don't have a good reason to, and if they are people who probably shouldn't have them. I think this is probably as far as we should go. Should teachers be allowed to carry guns at school? I don't think so. Probably not. Should victims of gun violence be allowed to sue firearms dealers and manufacturers? Yeah, probably. Yeah, they should be able to sue firearms dealers. Should the President of the United States have the power to deploy military troops? And, well, I actually don't know about that one. You see, this one's really weird. This one is, should they be allowed to sue firearms dealers and manufacturers if they are victims of gun violence? I guess, I'm gonna go with no. I think as long as they think they should only be held liable for negligence. I think if there are laws in place of, like, you have to do this before you are able to purchase a firearm, and those things are not carried through, then yeah, I think you're responsible in some capacity and should be able to be sued. Should the President of the United States have the power to deploy military troops in order to stop protests? No. Not the way it's happening right now. Yeah, I think this is probably the majority of it. It will only incite further violence. Are you in favor of decriminalizing drug use? Absolutely. Do you support affirmative action programs? I do. Should the government order schools to be closed in order to combat coronavirus? Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely for the best. Should people on the no-fly list be banned from purchasing guns and ammunition? Who makes the no-fly list? Okay, so that's the Federal Terrorism Watch list. Yeah, I'd say that's probably fair. Yeah, they should probably be banned from purchasing guns and ammunition. Should it be illegal to burn the American flag? Absolutely not. Do you support the Patriot Act? No. Should the Supreme Court be reformed to include more seats and term limits on judges? Yeah, that's probably for the best. Should the U.S. government grant immunity to Edward Snowden? Yes, they should. Should the social media companies ban political advertising? I'm gonna say no. Yeah, I'm gonna say no. Should the government be allowed to seize private property with reasonable compensation for public or civic use? Probably not. Should the military upgrade Air Force One? No. Let's see. God, there's so many of these. What are these ones? Domestic policy. I guess that makes sense. Should local police increase surveillance and patrol of Muslim neighborhoods? No. Absolutely not. That is not how that works. Should internet service providers be allowed to speed up access to popular websites? No. Should the NSA be allowed to collect basic metadata of citizens' phone calls such as numbers, timestamps, and call durations? No. Should there be term limits set for members of Congress? You see, here's my thought. I don't think we should have term limits for Congress, because I think Congress is how you end up getting the experience that you need in order to do more. I think it's probably better to primary people and legitimately remove them from power in that way than it would be to set term limits. Yeah, I don't think we should have term limits for Congress. Should the government pass laws which protect whistleblowers? Yes. Should the redrawing of congressional districts be controlled by an independent, nonpartisan commission? Yes, but I think you'd be hard-pressed to find one. Should the government regulate social media sites as a means to prevent fake news and misinformation? Should the government regulate social media sites? Yeah, no, the government should not determine what is fake or real news. Yeah. Should the government raise the retirement age for Social Security? No. Yeah. Yeah, no, this would disadvantage low-income seniors whose life expectancy is lower than wealthier seniors. Yeah. Yeah, no, we should not be lowering the retirement or raising the retirement age for Social Security. Okay. This is local stuff. Okay, which qualities are most important to you in a candidate? Integrity, consistency, morality. Let's see. Common sense. There's not a whole lot of that right now. I mean, these are all very good. I'd say that's probably my top 5. Okay, let's see. I wonder where I'm going to end up. All right, put your guesses in the comments. Where do I end up? Who should I be voting for president? And who should I be, which party should I be a member of? I wonder. Yeah, no thanks. All right. Okay, 2020 presidential ballot. Howie Hawkins, who could have guessed? Except, haha, doesn't matter, because we live in a two-party system. So I will be voting for Joe Biden, reluctantly, but it's gotta happen, because there is just no other option at this point. Yeah, no, I'm not at all surprised that I line up most with Howie Hawkins. I think the Green Party is very good. I just don't foresee a third party actually legitimately rising into contention with the two-party system in this country. I don't foresee it happening. I think the only way that we ever end up with something, at least in my lifetime, beyond the Democrat and Republican parties, is when those ones die. There's no other way. I don't think a third party can ever push their way in the way that our country is right now. Which is another reason why I think we should have ranked choice voting, because I think if we did, that would really help to change that sort of thing. My parties, let's see. Yeah, Marquita Bradshaw is running for the Senate in Tennessee, where I live, and she just won her primary. And as I understand it, she won, I think she raised, I think it was $8,000 total, and her opponent was like majorly funded by the party itself, so that's pretty great, and maybe she can actually get something done if she can get in there. That'd be great. Yeah, socialist, obviously. For those of you who didn't know, yeah, I'm a socialist, absolutely. Like, far beyond democratic socialism, I am a socialist. And then Green Party makes sense. Democratic Party's up here. Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised at all by any of this. But I think this was a good sort of baseline to to take a look at as we start moving more towards political content. This is a good thing. I think we can come back to this now and again and sort of see how things change over the course of our time kind of going through political content here on this channel. And I think this sort of gives me a good baseline of where I sit now to then watch where I'm going to go in the future. But with that being said, this has been fun. I like this. Let me know what you think of the new format. Obviously, this is a very long video. But if you made it all the way to the end, comment something about an octopus, and I will know. But, all right. Well, going forward, I would like to continue doing political content, much less of this, much more actually talking about politics. But basically, my goal at this point would be to move towards live stream content. I think being able to interact with you guys while I'm going through the content and kind of getting your thoughts on things as we go through them would be a whole lot more interesting and a whole lot more enlightening than just kind of doing things on my own. So let me know kind of what sort of things you would like to see politically with this channel going forward, whether you would like to see live streams, whether you think that would be a good sort of thing that you would like to sit down and go through the issues with me, recent political events, that sort of thing. I guess leave a comment down below to let me know, and I guess I will see you guys next time.